Hello and welcome to Inside News. I'm Dale Matthews, and here's Mike Jones. Hi, Mike.
Hey, Dale. What's shaking this evening?
Well, we're a little later than usual. That doesn't always happen to us, but I'm using a kind of a slow editing system and slow editor, and we're working on that. But so tonight we're starting a little bit later than usual, but it's worth the wait, I hope, for you. And we will show you some clips from today's weekly business session, and some of them are talking about the event that's happened up north. So we'll start with Vivian Kirkpatrick Pilger.
Vivian Kirkpatrick Pilger. I live in Grants Pass. I'm also here to address a situation that is deeply disturbing to me. I've had personal emails with some of the people that were up in Burns, and they're saying, the word is, they were holding a federal facility under armed guard. They were terrorists. They were domestic terrorists. These were not domestic terrorists. They said they would put down their arms anytime they wanted to be arrested, anytime that the people wanted to come in and arrest them. The FBI didn't go near the place. They waited till they were out on a road in the dark at 4:30 last night to pull them over. And they got out of their cars with their hands up. And Mr. Lincecum, from Personal Accounts, got out of the vehicle with his hands up and was shot in the face first, and then shot 3 more times. And one of the Bundy men, the Ammon Bundy's brother, was also shot and in the hospital. And, they were going to a meeting where 100 people were waiting for them. They were going to talk about the lands issues, which is what, we have many meetings about land issues here. But I would really hate for our county or our city or our leaders here in our county to say anything like, these were terrorists, or these guys were doing something against the law. Because I think Thomas Jefferson and James Madison and all of those guys that brought our country some freedom, Thomas Jefferson said, 2 of the enemies of the people are criminals and government. So let's tie the second down with the chains of the Constitution, so the second will not become the legalized version of the first, which I believe is probably what happened up there last night. It's pretty sad when a patriot gets shot in the face, or a patriot gets arrested and hauled off, or other people whose land they actually own. That bird sanctuary is now on. The Hammonds actually owned that at one time. They did an irrigation. If you read the history of it, they did such a fantastic job of irrigating all the land that their cattle was on, so it could grow food for their beasts, for their cattle, that the birds took over a certain spot of it because it was deeper and it got more water, and they liked it. So then along came the BLM and said, this would make a great bird sanctuary. So they took the land and turned it into a bird sanctuary, and they built it. And that's the history that I've read of it. And they built this bird sanctuary. In the middle of it, took the land from the Hammonds, and then they kept trying to take more and more land from them. And then there was a fire, and the Hammonds lit a backfire, which then got out of hand, took 137 acres. And for that, they're going to spend 5 years in jail for setting a backfire. So I would encourage everybody to call Merkley's office or your senator and tell them to lay off.
Wow, Mike?
Yeah, I don't know how much good that's going to do. That's a toughie there.
Well, we don't cover state or national politics, but we do reflect what people have said, especially in meetings with the county commissioners. So one of the questions is, as it's been talked about lately with the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists, is it really 3 minutes to midnight? Is it that for the country? Is it that for Burns and the state? Is it that for the county commissioners? Just how close to catastrophe are we?
Yeah. I think it might be for the county commissioners. And I'll just tell you what I think. I don't agree with what they did up there. I just think that's bad strategy. I agree in spirit on the fight there because what she's saying is true. At one point, a lot of property was seized up there because it was part of a larger estate that one guy owned, and then the federal government came in and took a piece of that from there was several or a couple of ranches, and took that from this guy, and said it was abandoned. And listen, I don't recognize the federal government's right to just come in and take somebody's property. I just that there is screwy. I think the federal government owns way too much land, et cetera, et cetera. I think there's good ways of fighting them. I think we need people that are allied with us in this cause in Washington, D.C., because that's where you're actually going to affect some change there. I think, paring down or eliminating some of these alphabet agencies would be a really good idea. However, I think this whole thing was a bad idea up there. So I went and got a couple of clips that were available today that were widely distributed. One is of an account of a young lady. She's an 18-year-old girl. She was in the car that the guy who was killed was driving. And then there's an account from another guy who was arrested in another car. I guess there was a couple of cars in this little motorcade here. And so I'll play both of those, and I'm sort of going back and forth as to which one is the right one to play first. I'm going to go ahead and play the young lady's account here first. And this is a clip from a video where a guy is talking to her on the phone, getting her account of it and recording it. So from time to time, you'll hear him asking a couple of questions, and this is a little over 3 minutes.
The driver was like, I'm just going to drive. I'm just going to talk to the sheriff. And he's like, so either shoot me now or leave us alone. And they were just like, turn the car off and put your hands on the light. So finally, he decided to just drive. So we all got down on the floorboard, and he took off. And then they started firing at us. They started shooting us a bunch of times. And then they had a roadblock set up. And so he ran into a snowbank, and they were like riddling the car with bullets. And then when we crashed, they stopped for a second. He got out of the car, and he had his hands in the air. He's like, and rest. He's like, just shoot me then. This is what you want, to shoot me. And they did. They shot him dead. They shot him like right there because he was just walking with his hands in the air. And I saw it. I swear to God, he was just walking with his hands in the air. And they shot him. And they shot him dead. And then after he was down on the ground, they shot him 3 more times. And then they bombarded our vehicle with bullets. Ryan got hit in the shoulder. We were laying there on the floorboard screaming. And they gassed us like 5 times. And they kept trying to shoot us. And their angle was bad. So I don't know. We were praying like so hard. And we were screaming like, stop, please, stop, please, stop. And they were just riddling us with bullets. They kept gassing us over and over, and we couldn't breathe because of the gas. And we were trying to find something white so that we could put a white flag out. And then I was trying to see, because Ryan knew he got hit in the shoulder. So he was like, well, I don't think it's too bad, though. So we were just trying to find a way to get out there. And then they, hold on one second. I'm waiting for them to call me back.
Listen, Victoria, I recorded your testimony.
Oh, okay.
All right, because if anything happens to you, I think it's really important to have that.
All right.
Okay, so let's just get this clear. Mr. Fincombe's hands were in the air when he was shot.
Yes.
Was he standing?
We saw him face up, his hands were still up after he was dead.
Okay, they shot him and he went down, then they shot him again on the ground?
Yeah, they shot him like at least 6 times.
The newspaper reports are just saying that 3 shots were fired, but that's not true.
No, are you kidding me? They shot at least 120 shots probably altogether.
Okay.
They were shooting the car, like a lot.
What side of the windows were the windows blown out on, the left or the right side?
Left.
Left side, okay. And
They kept hitting the right. They kept hitting the right side of the car too, but they didn't blow. Like the windows didn't come out. Like they were hitting the metal instead of the glass.
okay. And so not one shot was fired by anybody in the car or by a Lavoie?
No one even touched their gun.
No one touched their gun?
No one pulled their gun out. No one touched the gun. We had no rifles. A couple of the guys had sidearms on, but no one touched them. In fact, they had their hands out the windows to show that they were not firing. They weren't nothing. We showed no aggression at all.
Okay. So, I mean, that sounds like a fairly emotional account of it. You'd think, okay, well, I mean, it sounds legit to me. She was there. But then there's the account of another guy who's very calm and very measured. And he gives testimony that does not jive with this gal's here. Although you'll note that they were not right in the same place. In other words, he was in one of the cars where he was arrested and other people in his car were arrested and kept at that location. This Lavoie guy got back in the truck and started driving off. That's when the authorities started shooting at that car as it was driving away. And then they pursued it. And I don't know how far away, but it was obviously several hundred yards or maybe more. So the vantage point there has to be taken into consideration when listening to these 2 clips. Now, here's the second clip, and this guy is Mark McConnell. He was driving vehicle number 2.
This is what happened. Today we were heading to a meeting up in John Day, and myself and Buddha, Ammon, were in my Jeep. Lavoie Finnegan's truck had Lavoie, Ryan Payne, Ryan Bundy, Shauna Cox, and 18-year-old girl that I won't disclose her name. We were riding up 395. Ammon was taking a nap in the back of my Jeep. Buddha and I were just jawing. As we were going through the forest, we happened to look over, and there was approximately 11 heavy-duty, 3/4 ton, 1 ton trucks sitting there, all winches and jacked up and, standard HRT trucks. And they whipped out, pulled us over, pulled me out of the Jeep first, being a driver, being as tall as I am and such, being armed. Yeah, they were a little rougher with me, but I would be too. Then they pulled Ammon out. They pulled Buddha out. And then after they had us secured, they radioed ahead that vehicle 1 was secure. Go ahead and proceed with vehicle 2. At that time, we seen somebody come out of vehicle 2. Didn't know who it was on the passenger side, and they're about 200 yards up. They went to the ground. They were handcuffed. Next thing we know, Lavoie takes off with his pickup and the other occupants. HRT, of course, pursues. They got further down the road, and we didn't realize there was actually a roadblock about a mile down. And from what Shauna Cox is saying, going off what Shauna Cox and what Ryan Payne are saying, which were in the vehicle, visually, I seen the truck take off. Now, I mean, anytime somebody takes off with a vehicle away from law enforcement after they've exercised a stop, it's typically, considered an act of aggression and foolish. Payne said while they were sitting there and they were clearing my vehicle, that him and Lavoie kind of had a heated discussion, and Lavoie was actually rather heated. But I'm not going to dismiss or degrade Lavoie at all. Lavoie was very passionate, about this, about the movement, about what we were doing up here. But emotionally thinking, I mean, it's not always the best. but he was very passionate. I mean, I love the dude. Met him 3 weeks ago. I mean, I admired him. But he took off. You know, HRT had to chase him. You know, and then from what Shauna Cox was saying, once they got down there by the roadblock, I don't know if he tried to go around the roadblock or what he did. But anyways, the nose of his truck got stuck in the, you know, snowbank right there. And Lavoy has a diesel manual transmission. You know, from what Shauna Cox said, from she was inside of his truck again, that when he exited the vehicle, the rear wheels of the vehicle were still spinning, which diesel truck, manual transmission, makes sense. It's possible until it stalls. And he charged after law enforcement. You know, numerous, you know, I mean, her story changed a few times. She's added pieces, subtracted pieces. I don't know. I really don't know. What I do know to be true is from what Payne said, from what Shauna said, they can, you know, pieces here, pieces there. And from what I witnessed, I didn't see the shooting. He was not on his knees. He was not none of that. He was none of that nonsense. You know, that was a miscommunication on somebody else's part. But he went after him. He charged him. You know, Lavoy was very passionate about what he was doing up here. Not dismissing what they did, not dismissing what he did. I don't know. I didn't see it, and I'm not going to speculate on it.
Okay, so he's saying a number of times in that he didn't actually see what happened. You know, I mean, he was there, and he said they were 200 yards away when, and they're referring to it as vehicle number 2, took off, and that's when they started shooting at him. And so the point at which that vehicle was disabled by hitting a snowbank or something, as the gal described in the earlier video, they were quite a ways away. Who knows how long? They could have been a mile away for that matter. So this second account here that we just heard, I tend to think you have to take with a grain of salt, but you know, I would advocate that not to jump to any conclusions. How many situations have we seen in the past year alone where you hear about a certain occurrence and you know, everybody jumps to a particular conclusion, then you find out later, oh, it was totally different than that.
Yes.
I suspect it would be, you know, err on the side of caution and just wait. I tend to think that these people had some video cameras on the scene. Whether or not we'll ever see the video that came from those video cameras is a different story, but you can be assured that video exists. The other thing is that I guess the Oregonian reported that there were like 3 or 4 shots fired. Well, if we ever get an opportunity to see this vehicle that they were in, you know, if it's got 100 rounds in it, that'll tell us a story too. So I would just recommend, you know, being patient.
It's important for something like the Oregonian, who usually does a pretty good job from what I can see, to quote their sources and say who told them that there were 3 shots.
Yeah.
The other thing that's important to us is, isn't it amazing what a difference it would make if you have a body cam, if you have any video of what happened?
Yeah.
And if it's true that the government is overstepping its bounds again, that being able to show video is just as important, more important to them than it is to us. I mean, there we were, to bring it back a little locally, different accounts, we used the video from inside the church where the fellow was saying, you know, it's like the sin of divination if you don't follow authority. We used their video, and we still have people to say that never happened. I was there and it never happened. And have you seen the video? Yes, I have. Well, then why are you saying it never happened? It just never happened. It just never happened. What? Wally Hicks was in the same room when there were things happening, and later he said that's not on tape. And he's a lawyer. Boy, it's a mystery to me why people would claim that when you see something that you're not seeing it. I don't know.
Yeah, and this, of course, what Dale's referring to are cases where we knew that there was video and we knew it was available for these particular incidents.
And we showed it to you guys. We showed it to you. You've seen it.
Right.
And they're still denying it.
In this particular case, if there is video that shows them murdering a guy, you are never going to see that video ever. But if there's exculpatory video, you will see that almost assuredly.
Yeah. Well,
so if you never do see any video and they tell you, oh, we didn't have any cameras. Oh, come on.
We've gotten up from Josephine County and we've flown over to Burns, okay, because it was mentioned at today's weekly business session. And there are people here who are pretty upset about it. And you can imagine what Cheryl Walker had to say during her protected time in defense of the government. Well, you just don't know. Well, we don't know. But that's pretty obvious, the kinds of things that Cheryl Walker would say to the audience who was pretty stirred up about this subject. Well,
yeah,
that wasn't go ahead.
And there is another tie-in. I mean, we recently had not even a year ago now the Galice mining situation with a Sugar Pine mine, and you know, so there is kind of a direct tie-in in how things were going there. But they, in that particular case, they weren't occupying federal land. They had a protection operation set up at their own mine, which I think is two totally different things. The government may not see it any differently, but at some point in the future, because this issue with Sugar Pine Mine goes on, and also with other miners in this county goes on. And so you may see something very, very similar to what occurred last year happen again. And so these things are relevant, I think.
If you think that these people are going a bit too far, as Mike had mentioned, just keep in mind that there with the BLM, for example, it's an agency that has gotten somewhat out of control. I think is a very good way to describe it. And when these local patriots, or you can call them anything that you want to, I suppose, when they got involved, they got what they had asked for. They got the day in court for the people that were complaining about this and saying, hey, wait, don't burn down my cabin with me inside of it, for one, but don't do that. We're supposed to have our day in court.
Right. And that is a clearly different situation than what was going on up in Burns. It's clearly different, I think.
Right. Well, so, okay, there were other things that happened, so we're going to try to move along from that. There are other things that happened at today's weekly business session, and I believe this next person is going to get into quite a wealth of detail, but we're going to stop it every once in a while. Mike's going to stop it at certain points, and then we're going to try to explain what it is that I believe he is talking about. Go ahead and play this next thing from today's weekly business session. Thank you, Mike.
Ray Smith, Cave Junction. I was looking at the state legislative website and I saw something disturbing to me. An impact statement of imposing a 0.4% broad gross receipts tax. Among the list of negative impacts, such as income loss and population loss, is employment impacts. It estimates a loss of 15,022 private sector jobs with a gain of 6,004 public sector jobs, with a total employment loss of 9,018 jobs.
That's a bad ratio.
What I see.
Yeah, I don't like that.
Now look, everybody understands this is not as exciting as people being shot. Okay, but the impact on the way that we all live on an everyday basis should be rather shocking. Mike, you were saying something about how you think that's a bad ratio.
Oh, I don't like. Listen, anytime you are canning private sector jobs and adding public sector jobs, you're heading in the wrong direction. whatever it is you're doing as a matter of policy. I'm not familiar with the legislation that he's discussing here.
I believe it's a legislative concept. It's the idea of here's a way we could go, not too dissimilar from the idea that Simon Hare is floating out there. Let's ask people a question: would you like the state to march down here and take over? Okay, so
yeah, but is this a concept that's being considered by our legislature at this time, or
always? Right. Yes, it is. It's a trial balloon, and they're saying, you know, well, what do you think about this? Well, look at all the private sector jobs it'll create. Yes, it will decimate, you know, this other group of people, but whoa, look, there'll be more government employees, and won't that be just ducky?
Yes, of course.
Now, this fellow. Raymond Smith, his delivery is a little bit slow and deliberate, but he's not like tearing his hair out, doesn't have much left like me and maybe like Mike, but he is trying to lay out why he thinks that this kind of policy is a bad idea. So we'll let him talk.
I don't know what you're talking about. I am not a client. Okay. This is the real deal here.
Yes. Okay.
All right. Here we go.
There is a loss of 15,022 financial assets in the private sector, with an additional burden of 6,004 financial liabilities. Now, are these liabilities necessary? Maybe. But is that worth a loss of over 15,000 jobs? People that may lose their personal property, lose homes, end up on food stamps and other public assistance. When we have a local tax proposed, whether it's a property tax, sales tax, or even House Bill 3453, there is more to the financial impact on the public than financial impact statement that says this is what you have to pay, this is what we get, and it may provide this service. It brought this question to my mind: is it possible to have a comprehensive impact statement printed with any future tax proposals or advisory questions about a tax that would include job loss, home loss, population loss, along with the usual financial impact?
That's a good question.
It's a really good, and since we've got environmental impact statements that are all over us,
yeah,
why don't we have financial impact statements?
Oh, right. Yes, exactly. And you know what? Listen, those environmental impact statements in many cases are a tool of the environmental side to try and put the kibosh on whatever constructive thing that you're trying to do.
You think maybe we could slow down some of these financial plans of the county commissioners and the city councilors? Well, right. A better example. Okay, now this guy is a little low key. He's a little low key. Okay, but maybe we need some steady, kind of people out there saying, now, wait a minute, and not foaming at the mouth like I do. I don't really do that, not very often. But think of the city councilors and their brilliant plan for a grants pass city sales tax. What if they were required to put out a financial impact statement on all the businesses in the area first?
Well, first of all, listen, they would immediately discover how much of a massive deterrent, though, a study like that is, because it's almost impossible to quantify. It really is.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
but I like the concept of the thing. What's the impact? How many of our toes is this bad idea going to cut off?
Well, and listen, the proof that these things are difficult to quantify is illustrated by their the reports that they give on these economic development. Rosie, this is going to create 94 full-time family wage jobs. I mean, they're just pulling it out of the air. So I mean, they probably wouldn't be deterred by this. They go, okay, Bill, let's just go in the back room and make something up, and we'll bring it out how this is actually gonna give us 1 million new jobs. Yeah, that's what it's going to do.
And it has
Because
this multiplier effect, because the first time
Right.
that the IVCDO, Community Development Organization, came to the commissioners, they said, we're going to create 214 full-time family wage jobs. See how fast I can say that now, because I've said it so many times. And for putting 2 wheelchair ramps in a state park. And then that was so successful, they came back, well, we're going to create 90 full-time family wage jobs from putting a plaque on a rock. And the commission, oh, lovely, what a great idea. Of course you're going to. And then they came back again. Mark Von Holly, take a lesson from this for those who watch this show. They came back again and, oh, we need $50,000 that we're going to hand it out to all kinds of businesses. Oh, yes, here's the money. Brother, I mean, at some point you got to say, now, wait a minute. Before we give you $50,000, how'd those first jobs turn out? Oh, we don't really want to know.
Yeah, you see, it doesn't matter. That's what, and they don't really care about environmental impact reports for the most part. It's just part of the bureaucratic process. And when it came to this, they'd find some way around. And who would be the controlling legal authority who's making sure that you do all this and you do it in the right way, and you pay such and such organization for the study? It would end up being they'd find some way around that, or they'd find some way of eliminating it because it's putting the kibosh on their forward progress or whatever. Anyway, that's
one of the things we do here is we play back videotape and we laugh about it. We just want to put these words that this guy is saying into someone else's mouth, and you'll probably know who I'm talking about. Somebody that comes up and is running for county commissioner. Oh, you were doing this and you're trying to do that, and what's the matter with you? Have you ever thought about marijuana? And why aren't you doing it? And would be quite a bit more active. This guy is, well, I don't think it's a very good idea to do this stupid thing. Do you? Yes. I like his I'm somewhere in between those. I'd like to think.
Mm-hmm.
But you won't see that tonight, because why would I include mine? I'm on the show. Go ahead, Mike.
I think that's a bigger part of the picture, and if that's possible to do, it might give people a little better idea of what they're looking at when they're asked to pay more. And I would like to also comment on the Burns incident there. From what I've seen of it, I kind of view that as an act of civil disobedience. We've seen that in the past. Most recently, in my mind, is the Occupy Wall Street, whatever they call that, where people occupied the town squares and so on and so forth. Same kind of thing. A peaceful protest that really didn't harm anything. Thank you.
Excuse me, Mr. Smith, I have a question. Your first part of your comments referred to a bill number that you had found on the website. What was that bill number? Do you remember?
No, it's something I found in the legislative website, and it was just an impact statement that I printed off that was an impact of imposing a 0.4% broad gross receipts tax.
Okay.
I think it's a legislative concept at this
Yeah, it
point.
probably doesn't have a bill number.
Right.
Yes,
right.
Elsie. Okay,
But
thank
that's
you.
what they're talking about. So.
Yep.
Thank you.
We're
I just
familiar
wanted to
with
make
it.
sure I hadn't misheard that or missed it. Thank you.
Yeah, you know what? He's making reference to, and this is I think this illustrates the difference between the way the government deals with one type of occupation and another. He mentioned Occupy Wall Street. Now, Occupy Wall Street inhabited a park in Portland, and not only did they not come in and shoot people, but they were having sex in public. They were drinking. They were doing drugs. They were running around naked. They were defecating everywhere. And so what was the government response? They brought porta potties into them. They allowed them to stay in that park for a year. Okay. But in this situation, the governor says, That's enough. Send in the armed goons. So these two situations, I mean, these guys, listen, they would have done better if they went in there without arms, wearing flowered t-shirts and smoking weed. They could have set up camps all over that place and started, tearing the place apart and playing loud music or whatever. They would have said, oh, just leave them alone. They're not that bad. Something along those lines. It's
well, I spent some time in Eureka and in Humboldt County in California.
Mm-hmm.
And I also spent some time working with the government monitoring broadcasts of other countries and looking at trends and doing reports and those kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember during that time that there were some protesters who went down to the Eureka City Hall, and they handcuffed and chained themselves to the tables there and refused to move until the mayor and the city council talked to them about some of their concerns about the forest. Honestly, I don't remember which side they were on the argument. I'm not sure that it matters. Well, the Eureka police came in and they grabbed the heads and the hair of these guys and women, and they took Q-tips and dipped it in spray and rubbed it on their eyeballs.
Wow. That's one way of doing it.
The editor of the Eureka Times Standard, a woman at the time, she said, well, this is a really good idea because, this kind of civil disobedience cannot be tolerated in our society.
Mm.
Well, that was picked up by one of the news agencies in mainland China who said, now the United States criticizes us and look what they're doing. How would you like a cotton bud, as they put it, dipped in that kind of spray and rubbed on your eyeballs?
Oh, really? Yes. China's one to talk about that.
Lovely. But I called the editor.
They'd rather run you over with a tank.
Yes, they would. Now, we've seen that footage. So I called the editor of the Times Standard and I said, I just want to let you know, because I look at this kind of stuff. Here's what they're saying about us. So, editor, you may just want to keep this in mind when this kind of information is getting out there. Now, what did they?
I tend to think the Chinese news agency is reporting that for your consumption.
Oh, probably so. Yes, that's probably so. Yes. So, at any rate, okay. So that's what Raymond Smith had to say at the weekly business session. Let's go on to the next person, and they're bringing things to their commissioners.
Okay. Oh, it's at Sandy Casanelli again.
Sandy Casanelli, Merlin, Oregon. Last week, during the commissioner's protected time when no public response was allowed, this board mentioned me by name out of the blue with no readily apparent context other than to impugn my character. Keith Heck said, there's a popular hue and cry about popular vote, popular vote, popular vote. Let's remind ourselves that Sandy Casanelli was recalled by about a 73% popular vote. So we'll get over that hurdle first before we start listening to other issues. That was a popular vote. That was a rather resounding recall from the position of county commissioner, unquote. Simon Hare chimed in, quote, it was 71%, but at this, the margin of error, unquote. It's amazing how much Commissioners Heck and Hare remember about that recall, but they conveniently forgot the most important thing about it, namely that it was totally illegal. Don't they remember how our former county clerk, Art Harvey, conveniently looked the other way when multiple laws were violated in order to push it through to the ballot? Have they forgotten that it somehow didn't matter that each and every petition sheet lacked the signature of the chief petitioner to make them lawful? I guess Commissioners Heck and Hare just conveniently forgot to mention those little facts about the recall. So maybe we'll get over that hurdle first before I speak about my second issue.
Now, I have personally looked at all 646 the petition sheets. And it says in there, under penalty of law, you must sign here to the lead petitioner. It wasn't signed. That then, if you're going to be fair about things, Art Harvey, who used to be here, that then would invalidate any sheet that wasn't signed. It's the law. And Art was very tough on the signatures and et cetera that had to do with Cheryl Walker. It's selective enforcement of the law. So I went with Sandy Casanelli when she confronted Art Harvey about this. And he said, well, you can just appeal it to the state. He did not do his job properly. So it might sound to you as, well, you know, I don't know, it was illegal. It was not legal. Yeah. Not a single one of them was signed the way it's supposed to be signed. Mike?
I agree. That's that is the very definition of illegal. You could have a definition of illegal and have, you know, video of those events to describe it.
She was recalled in an illegal way, and that doesn't even count. You know, I was there when I went up to people that were collecting the signatures. Some of you may remember this story. And I just walked up and this lady started talking to me. They were at the growers market where it's no longer allowed to do anything like that. And she says, I said, so you're recalling Sandy? That's right. And we're recalling her because she hates veterans. She does. And yeah, well, that's true. And she hates pets too. She hates animals. She hates animals. Yeah, that's right. And I said, is that what it says on the paper? Well, no, but no. Uh-oh.
Yeah.
That's against the law. It does not say that. And I'm talking to her, and then someone else looks over and they say, oh, it's Dale Matthews. You're talking to Dale Matthews. And the lady's like, well, no, never mind. And I said, what do you mean, never mind? She just said that. No, she didn't. And I said, yes, she did. Well, she doesn't know what she said. Do you? No.
Yes.
Cheaters, liars and cheaters. All of them? No, I don't think so.
Well, and I'll tell you what, I had an encounter with Ed Bowers. You know, and this is before I even knew Dale. I knew that they were out in front of the post office collecting signatures for this recall, and I got out with my recorder here and a mic and stuff to have a little interview with him to ask him what he was doing and why he was doing it and how it was going and all that kind of stuff, you know? And he didn't want to be recorded, and I respected that. But then he went on and on and on, and I was there for an hour with him while he went into one thing after another, all of which I can't recall at this particular point in time, but believe me, it took place. And so those things were outside the boundaries of what was on the petition there as well. And so that too, in retrospect, now is a violation of the law.
Mark Gatlin and Sherry Adkins did it because I heard them doing it. Those were all against the law. Now you can say, well, you know, it was an important recall, so it doesn't matter if it's against the law. I think it does.
Yeah.
And every little tiny thing that they did, and some of them were wrong, that they did in this last recall thing with Cheryl Walker, they were all caught. Boy, they were caught for sure. I mean, there were people, well, I am registered. Yeah, but you registered, but not really registered. What? I got a postcard after that election saying, you know, with instructions about how to know if you're really registered. That would have been helpful before the recall was declared invalid, wouldn't it?
Mm-hmm.
That's also a judgment call from our former county clerk, who's now over in Jackson County. Infection and spreading.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what else does Sandy Casanelli have to say? That was part one.
On the agenda today, an interesting addition is included at the bottom of the page. We notice that the last item states that the presiding officer can refuse to recognize anyone who is campaigning for public office. What's up with that? I looked up Ordinance 9227, Section 7, and it says absolutely nothing about campaigning. Did this board simply decide to change the ordinance without public notice or any public process? No, couldn't be. That would be downright deceitful. For decades, we have always campaigned right here in the Ambassador. It's a fabulous way for the public to hear and learn about the views of each candidate. Campaigning in here is only banned by law after the ballots have been sent out for an election. That's because this building is within 100 feet of a ballot box. Could this new fake campaigning rule be because Commissioners Walker and Heck are running for re-election and they want to eliminate any competition? No, that couldn't be. That would be extremely self-serving and un-American. Any questions for me?
No.
Seeing none, God bless Josephine County.
No. No, I love this fake campaigning rule. So it seems as if the commissioners are backing off of this. Now, look, there were a couple of people in the audience that are running. Nobody mentioned this, everybody that's running. All right. Nobody has mentioned this. It's also the same rule, just by sheer coincidence, over where the mayor and the city councilmen are running. They've also decided to have exactly the same kind of thing. It's always been allowed. Why shouldn't it be allowed? What's disruptive about somebody saying I'm running for office? I don't want to hear it every day of the week like we do from at least one candidate. I don't like it. Please stop it. But hey, you know, it's America.
It's your right to do it, though. It is your right to do it.
Yes. And so what they've done is they've added this on. Have they added this on to an ordinance without having any public hearing about it, without taking any vote about it? It sure looks that way. And how convenient is it to just add this on to the list of things that you can't do when they're running for office? They're not going to win. They don't have a prayer of winning anyway. So this is just one more indication of why we have to say goodbye to these guys.
Yeah.
I think she's right. So how did this happen? I was there. We were the first ones to announce it because I was in the little back room when Keith Heck said that he wanted to do this. Judy Ahrens was the first person to mention to Sandy Casanelli. So when she says we found this out, she really means Judy Ahrens told her, but we told all of you about this before that this was going to be their new plan. Now, look, it doesn't matter that the city council, well, you must only talk about city issues now. That's fine, because if that's really what they want, I'm more than happy to do that. I don't think that's what you want, but that's what we'll do. We'll talk about you from now on, okay? And if the county commissioners say, well, now you must maybe approach us and you must say things in a certain way, iambic pentameter, no problem. I can handle that. You want it in a rhyme? You want it in a rap song? Mike can do the rap song. I can do the rhyme.
Oh, man.
No. Okay, but look, if the city council says, well, we're thinking maybe we'll only allow you to mention something where it's requests from citizens. Okay, I request that you listen to this and then tell them what you have to say. That's my request. You want it in the form of a request? There you go. It's like Jeopardy. You form it in the form of a question.
Yes, that's right.
No problem. But you're not going to get anywhere, and all that's going to happen is everyone's going to see that you're trying to crack down on the opposition. It's not going to do you any good because you're for taxes when the population is telling you, get off of that kick. No, we can't, because as Cheryl Walker pointed out recently, this is just amazing to me, that all of the options that people are suggesting besides a property tax, they range from the impossible to the bizarre. That's what she thinks about you. Next speaker, please.
Brad Conner.
Hey, wait a minute. Wait just a second here.
You can't
There's
have two
people at the podium.
Yes, you can't have two people at the
that.
podium. Are they each going to want 3 minutes?
Is he just introducing her, or is he the one talking?
He's going to be the one talking. She can say some things, but I don't think we'd understand it because it's not in English.
Ah, I see. Okay.
First Grants Pass. This is Lucy, so try and ignore her cute face. I too want to just ask for clarification on E on the board rules. So I want to read a little bit from the county charter. We have a county charter meeting. It's held at the Republican headquarters. It's at 11 o'clock on Saturday mornings. Very informative. So section 12 covers meetings, and the first part of that says, by ordinance, the Board of County Commissioners shall prescribe rules governing its meetings, procedures, and members as such. So to change a board rule requires an ordinance. As far as I've been able to see, Ordinance 92-27, Section 7, just even last year, did not have E in it. And so in order for E to be a lawful rule, it would have to be present in an ordinance. So I'm just asking for clarification, which ordinance specifically covers E? Thank you.
Good catch,
Now, Mike,
Brad.
Mike, do you think that they gave him any explanation?
I'm going to say no. I'm going to say no.
No, there's no explanation for this lunkhead idea.
Yeah.
And all that it does, again, if I could have written a script for them to say something stupid, this would have been part of it, okay? Because all they need to do is keep showing the mayor is doing it. Dan DeYoung is doing it over at the city council. Roy Lindsay is doing it over at the city council. These three commissioners are doing it, okay? The idea is we cannot tolerate any opposition at all. And so we're going to try to make it so that you can't even talk about the fact that you're running against us. Oh boy, that's great. That's why I haven't, I should object about this for everybody, but I'm not objecting about it for myself because they're like on my campaign committee. Please go right ahead and keep saying those kinds of stupid things.
Yes.
Lovely. Okay, so of all of these things, you can see where I put this over my shoulder, because is it true that we're really that close to, we're 3 minutes from midnight? I think probably not, although it may be dawning on them, oh boy, such analogies, that the commissioners are on their way out and they're in their sunset years. And I think that we just ought to kind of ease them out the door. And if they don't like the way the people vote, look, the door's right over there. We will help you get over there. We'll even get a walker for you. Ooh, another analogy. We'll even get a walker for you, and we'll help you out through that door, and we'll hire a chauffeur for Simon to take him home and stay there. That's what we had to say. Thank you for being patient.